Konnichiwa. Hello and welcome to Racehouse with me, Jolie.
And me, Darren Reeves.
The Japanese Grand Prix has just happened over at Suzuka. Well, I would say it's a good race, but I think we knew what was going to happen. Congratulations to Red Bull, the Constructors' Champions. They've done it, and Max is going to have to wait a little longer for his Drivers' Championship, and Sergio as well, to see where he's going to fall. But, well, Red Bull, class again.
Mate, I think that Red Bull have just shown us this weekend how dominant they are. I think last weekend in Singapore we had a little glitch, but we all really enjoyed it. But they've shown total dominance this season. You know, to win by the margin that he won. You know, the top three were separated by like pretty much 20 seconds each. You know, so there's a big field spread on this circuit, clearly. But the dominance that they had. But it was predicted that McLaren were going to be 30 seconds behind, and they were only 20 seconds behind. But first of all, before we talk about them, yes, congratulations to Red Bull. Brilliant season. But Max, I think, could have won it by himself, couldn't he? The Constructors' Championship this season, which I don't know has ever been done before.
It looks like he pretty much has, and he's one of the many fans out there. In fact, I went out and watched the race at the local fan zone and spoke to some of our followers on YouTube and on Spotify. And Kat Riedel as well, a German fan who was there, had this to say about Red Bull. Okay, Kat, what Japanese Grand Prix just happened? What are your thoughts?
Well, delighted for McLaren. It's nice to see Max back on the podium, especially after last weekend. Good race.
Good race. And who are you supporting?
Red Bull. Not Max in particular. I think he's brilliant. But I do like a bit of Christian Horner. So...
Well, we all have a bit of Christian Horner, I guess. That's a different episode. But what happened with Perez? Very interesting. He had a couple of contacts there, you know, with Magnussen as well. There was stuff all over the track. He came back in, had another front wing. I think he had a second pit as well. Then he was retired. Then he came back out on the track, and then seemed to go for a bit of a Sunday drive. What was that about?
I think it's just to surface penalty, so that they can have a clean race. Next week.
And Red Bull being your team, they've won the Constructors' Championship as well. I mean, they seem so invincible. How do you think Red Bull are going to be for the rest of the season?
They will definitely keep it up. It's nice to see that, especially this weekend, they won the Constructors' Championship just because of Honda having their 75th anniversary.
Oh, you think it's because of the anniversary? That's why they did well?
They waited, yeah.
Okay, and what about the other teams in the field? I mean, we saw McLaren today, Piastri's first podium as well, which is great for him, a rookie in the season. Do you think we could see a rookie do really well next year alongside Max?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you just need to have a look at what's his face? Liam Lawson, yeah. I mean, he's done absolutely incredible since he's actually came along. Checo only has a contract until next year. So might be nice to see a rookie coming into Red Bull.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned Liam Lawson. We saw that this season we got Tsunoda and Ricciardo, but Liam Lawson has come in like a cat amongst the pigeons.
Amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, last weekend, just the quali itself to overtake Max, and Max being out in Q2 and didn't even make it into Q3 was absolutely amazing to see, especially for somebody who hasn't driven the race circuit before.
Well, if Liam, at the moment, Tsunoda and Ricciardo are confirmed for AlphaTauri, if Liam was to get a drive, where could he go? Where could he fit?
Well, the only seat which is currently still available is Williams.
Well, this is a Mercedes stable.
I know. I don't think he would actually go there at all. He would stick with Red Bull and probably just wait a year.
Oh, okay. You see, wait a year, so you think maybe he could start into the Red Bull racing team with Max?
Yeah.
So a lot of people talk about Lando and Max, but Lando is contracted to McLaren. But yeah, Liam has shown his stuff. He would be very quick in those cars, so he's a good possible contender for that.
I would say so, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much. Enjoy the race. Well, there's Kat there talking about Red Bull, her love for that, and she's off to Vegas, she's off to Silverstone next year. That love for Red Bull, they're just not going to falter, and I think certainly their strength is going to continue. I can't see Max lifting his foot off for the rest of this season.
No, but I think the budget cap comes into this more than we've seen before with dominance. When Red Bull had the dominance with Vettel, when Ferrari had it with Schumacher, and then Mercedes with Hamilton. We now have this cost cap, which means they can't spend any more money. So Red Bull are at their max, no pun intended. And so everybody else can still spend that money to get closer and closer and closer. And that's why the rest of the field is so close behind. And I think that gap's going to get closer over the next 6 months, 12 months. And then the rule changes in 2026. So this dominance could be the last time we actually see it. And the cap, I think, is really important. Because even though we're seeing history being made, there is an element of we need the jeopardy, we need different winners each week to make the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors' Championship go to the wire. And as we did in 2021, the TV viewing on that season was immense, wasn't it? And we just couldn't wait. This season, it's like, well, Max is going to win. Who's going to finish second or third?
It is true. I mean, look at Singapore. That was a fantastic finale to the race. Having all the cars up there, really battling it out. And that's what fans want to see. We've got another reaction here from Graham. From Martin first. Martin Lee, who was talking exactly about that. What did you feel about this race and what happened?
Well, I think it was as expected. I think Verstappen went through, and watching the race, you kind of missed him completely because it was all about what was happening behind her. And I think McLaren have definitely come forwards and shown themselves. And in this race, coming second and third means that we're watching the race, I suppose, from what happens from behind the first place.
Yeah.
But it's good for the constructors, 6-time champions of the construction. And I just hope they're obviously going forwards in the coming seasons, they might be closer like it was in Singapore.
Well, I mean, the season isn't finished yet as well. We've still got a few more races left. Do you think we're still going to have this Red Bull dominance to the end?
Yes, it's a quick answer. I can't see why we shouldn't. I think that we need to have the off-season to see what happens, see if people can come along and make the difference. But to be fair, they've got the right drivers. But I'm pleased to see McLaren back up there again. I'd like to see Williams again. I'm from the age where it was the Williams, McLarens, Ferraris, those kinds of teams. Mercedes coming through, and being from the UK, it's always good to see the UK drivers up there as well.
Yeah, a lot of people do. I mean, they love a team or they go for the drivers. I mean, I'm pretty similar as well. I follow the British drivers. Williams didn't have a great race today. Sargent out again, and Albon retired as well. I mean, it's tough to compete, especially when you've got drivers like Perez who are kind of maybe bumping into, as Kevin Magnussen saw.
Well, I think when you're playing down at the bottom of the field, you've got more chance of getting hit or being hit out anyway. The overtaking, right from the front end, we had a yellow flag, we had virtual safety car from the first lap, to clear some debris, and again, that was pretty much the last few cars going through from there. And I think, if you're going to play in that area, you've got to be looking at maybe trying to increase either your driver capability or your car capability. And it's difficult with the funding, but at the end of it all, every team has to come through that anyway. Red Bull wouldn't have started at the top, they would have come through. Ferrari's been in the industry for a long time, going through a roller coaster of a ride, and Mercedes again, they're going through their own roller coaster at the moment. And with McLaren coming back, they've had their time out, but I think you've got to get the driver and the teams working together.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. I mean, more competition, getting more cars up there, and then coming back to Japanese Grand Prix, we talked about, cars being up there. I was very happy to wear this McLaren shirt today because McLaren had an absolute belter. the upgrades look to have really done the job. And first podium for Piastri, a great second for Norris.
Well, before the race, so my boys, I think I've mentioned it, we do a little prediction on WhatsApp. So, and today I won. It's the first time we've actually had a winner of the top three. We started doing this the same week as the podcast.
You called all three?
I called all three today. And one of my sons had Hamilton on the podium, and one of my sons had Norris and Piastri the other way round, as the starting grid was. But no, I called it today, mate. I think Norris is just more experienced. I think the fact that Piastri has now got his first podium, I think, is a wonderful step forward for the rookie. And we just want to see Norris get that win now that he so desperately should have got in Russia. You know, 21. But yeah, I think McLaren are just going from strength to strength to strength. And I've just watched an interview of Lewis after the race, and he said McLaren are the only team who are getting this right now. He said, and we're making the best of the car that we've got, and the direction that they took at the start of really last season, and where they've changed. But they've gone, McLaren are the ones who've got it right. We've got to change our direction. We've got to follow McLaren, because they have a Mercedes engine in it. So it's even more embarrassing for Mercedes and Hamilton right now.
That is embarrassing. And we saw that inter-Mercedes battle as well, you know, between George and Lewis. It was, the gloves were off. I mean, they had to be very, very careful at some of those points not to take them, both of them, off the checkboard, off the chessboard even. I feel sorry for George because, you know, I think he had team orders as well to let Lewis through. I think Lewis was a bit faster, though, to be fair. And that's what happened with Lando. You know, they said to Oscar, okay, let Lando through. He is quicker. Fine. I don't think he was much of a challenge against Max. But that Mercedes rivalry is really apparent, you know, with the teammates.
Well, you know, Russell is less experienced. Hamilton is arguably the greatest driver of all time. So George just needs to know his place a little bit right now. He's learning so much from Lewis.
Know your place, George. Know your place.
Correct, he does. But he was a bit grumpy today. He changed strategy to go to a one-stop, which I thought was a great idea at the time. But clearly the tyres had gone off. So I think he ended up in 7th, probably the right place for him today, and where Mercedes was. So I think actually Lewis beating Sainz was actually the positive for the team today, because I think Ferrari looked quicker.
Ferrari looked fantastic today. They really, really did. Real strength, real speed, great driving. You know, Sainz, again, I mean, I'm not a natural Ferrari fan. You know, I get it, but I really am loving Sainz this season. I think he's done so well, and he had a great race. Again, there's that rivalry in between, and actually we spoke to Graham over today at the Fan Zone, and this is what Graham had to say about Ferrari. And remind me, who do you support?
I'm a Ferrari.
Yeah.
Ferrari supporter, so Leclerc, Sainz did well.
What do you think about the strategy, though, for Ferrari? I mean, McLaren obviously had the edge. Do you think they faltered somewhat with their pit stops and their strategy?
I think so. I think that I don't know who the number one driver is for them now at the moment. I think they're all in debate between each other. Who's better, Leclerc or Sainz? I think that there's a bit of tension, I think, personally, in the team. There's a bit of tension between them all. So
that's a really good point, because Sainz is probably having the best season of his life. I mean, so I think Leclerc was the number one driver maybe last season, but this season it's all about Sainz.
Exactly, it's all back to back. It's all very competitive now, and I think there's definitely a bit of hostility in the team between who's going to be number one driver.
But they look fast. I mean, coming on to the next race was Qatar in a couple of weeks' time. It's a local one. Do you think in that sprint race as well, it's going to be a great situation for Ferrari to show their performance?
I think so. It's going to be similar to last week in Singapore. I think it's going to suit them better than Red Bull and unfortunately McLaren as well. I think that hopefully next week, and then even Abu Dhabi as well, I think it's going to be an interesting race. I think Ferrari could take it.
Great, it's a close one. Thanks a lot. So, Ferrari, yes, who is the lead driver? I mean, I think last season you'd say Leclerc. I mean, it was like, this is the golden child. This is who's coming through. But Sainz is like, no, I am still here. Smooth operator. So
we've got to remember where Sainz has come from. You know, he's come from Red Bull. You know, he was one of their drivers. and was racing for Toro Rosso. I think it was Toro Rosso at the time, and of course then moved to Renault before then moving to McLaren, and now being at Ferrari. But he is in the best car he's ever driven right now, and it's confidence, isn't it? Confidence and momentum. You know, he's found something in that car that suits his driving style that maybe doesn't suit Charles's driving style quite so much right now, and they are so even. It's wonderful to see. But yeah, he's a Red Bull driver coming up through, and Charles being the Ferrari driver. They've had two great educations in driving. They are both, I think, very similar drivers. It's just that we see Leclerc as the Ferrari golden child, but he's got work to do, and that's what we want to see in every team. As we've seen with Mercedes today, Russell is giving Hamilton a go every time. They're really close on track, but experience and hierarchy does shine through with them because of what Lewis has achieved. Charles has not achieved anything yet.
No, that's true. And talking to, we've got close teammates at the moment with Mercedes and Ferrari, but we have kind of distant teammates as well. And I think probably the big name on that is Sergio Perez. Terrible race for him today. Lots of scuffs and scrapes and bumps. Wasn't finding pace. Then was retired. And then he came out for a little Sunday drive. I mean, what happened today with Perez?
First of all, he didn't have the best of starts and had to come in for a new nose cone. And then I would arguably say when he came into the hairpin to overtake Bottas, who in turn was having a terrible race, so they were both at the back of the field through their own fault. Probably the worst attempt at a pass I've seen this season by Perez. He's desperate. He's desperate. And he can see his teammate just disappearing in the distance week after week after week. I think his confidence and his self-belief and self-esteem is rock bottom. I said in one of the other podcasts, he came into this season believing he could be world champion. He went to Monaco still believing that with, 2 wins. And what he's experienced since May, I think is destroying his confidence. And even though they're saying he'll be in the car for next season and Ricciardo at AlphaTauri, what are we doing? Is it just a money thing because of a contract? McLaren kicked Ricciardo out a season before the end of his contract to bring Piastri in. Why are we not bringing Lawson into that car right now?
Yeah, and this is, I was talking to Kat earlier about that as well. Liam Lawson has shown he deserves a drive. Yes, contract stuff is important as well, and to kind of honour what you said you're going to do. But F1, as we know, is a snake pit. It is cold, it is cruel, and it's all about performance and results. Liam deserves the ride. Look, there's still a spare seat over at Williams. Yeah. Logan Sargent, again, wasn't a race to remember for him. But can he cross over, Liam, from the Red Bull to the Mercedes stable? Sainz did it. You talked about it.
Exactly. It can happen, and Liam needs a seat next season. And if Williams is the only one available because Perez is staying in the Red Bull, then, that's what it is. I think there's still talk of Zhou. Has Zhou been confirmed yet in the whatever we're going to call the team? Sauber, let's say, for now.
I think he is confirmed, actually, yeah. I think he has been.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think Sargent, he's been told they need better results, that he needs to be doing better. And I think we've seen in the last couple of weeks where he's pushed, he's crashed the car every time in qualifying and in the race, and just not delivering at all. And you're going to find this with some drivers. You find your level, and maybe Sargent needs to be racing in IndyCar or NASCAR or Formula E. Maybe that's his level, which is one below F1, of course. I feel sorry for him, but he's had his chance, like Nick De Vries and like Liam Lawson. And Lawson today, we must say, beat his teammate.
Yes, we haven't mentioned that.
No.
I was watching that closely. Where did he finish? Was it P9?
Lawson was 11th, so no points, and Yuki was 12th.
Yeah, I saw them, and I thought, that's going to rub Yuki up the wrong way, especially at his home race, getting beaten by his teammate.
Well, we've not seen them. We've not seen them against each other yet because Yuki didn't finish the last two races. So and of course Liam, the fact when he came in at Zandvoort, it was literally after quali straight in, wasn't it? So no, I think he's had the most awesome of starts to an F1 career, where he's just a deputy. He's not even a rookie, really. He's a deputy for Ricciardo. But we may see him in Qatar. They're still saying that they're not going to rush Ricciardo's return because now they've confirmed him for next season. What is the rush?
Yeah.
So mate, Lawson for me, wow.
So impressive, and it's a great story, isn't it? It's you come in your first season, you score points. It's just a dream. So no, it would be criminal if he doesn't get a drive next year because he's a great talent, and it just shows. Yeah, there are rookies that take to it. Liam Lawson, Oscar Piastri, fantastic season. I mean, he got a bunch of points today from McLaren, so they're going to be happy for the constructors, along with now Lando, of course. But yeah, Sargent, and who else was I talking about? Oh, Nick de Vries.
Yes.
Yeah, it's that's what it is. That jump, isn't it? Some people take to it, some people can't.
Well, this is it, and it just shows you the quality of what we've got in F2 right now. Coming up through. We've talked about Drogovic. You love
Drogovic. We have to get him on.
I just like saying his name, really. But the point is, he's Aston Martin's number 3 driver, isn't he? And of course, we've not mentioned the S word today, so we'll keep it at that. But where did he finish today? I'm just going to look.
Did he finish?
I'm just looking. No, didn't finish. Basically, was 18th. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Lap 20, he retired.
This is a running theme for our podcast. It's just absolutely raining on Lance Stroll.
Just do better, buddy. Do better, or give somebody better a chance. There's only 20 seats. We could arguably say there should be 24. We need the best 20 drivers in those best 20 seats. And right now, we're not seeing that.
No. Yeah, it's those recurrent Sargent and Stroll every race. I mean, Lance started okay, actually. I think he did okay in Bahrain, a couple other races, but it's just not falling for him, which is very strange.
And it looked like in quali yesterday that actually it was falling for him. He was doing much better, but I just can't explain it. And I think it's confidence again. I wonder if his injury in his hands, he came back too soon. Maybe he wasn't recovered mentally, not in the right place, and it's just. And then had a teammate who completely and utterly trounced him. Alonso finishing 8th today, so more points. Not enough though, because McLaren are chasing them you wouldn't believe. So do we know how far where they are now behind? 172 points to 221 points, so 49 points difference. And they can do this.
Can they get second? Can they pass Mercedes, do you think?
No, they've got to get double their points right now. So no, I can't see them getting Mercedes. It's still close, 20 points between Mercedes and Ferrari. And Ferrari, for me, are looking stronger than Mercedes, so that's going to be a really great race. So that's what we're looking for in the Constructors' Championship. Now it's been sewn up by Red Bull. We're looking at Mercedes and Ferrari for second place and Aston Martin and McLaren for 4th place. And I think that's going to be a great watch between now and the end of the season.
I think that is. I think we can kind of forget about Max because if we just assume he's going to win every race, which he may do.
But we did that, and look what happened at Singapore.
Well, yes, that's true. Yeah, but that was a blip, and he was back on form, and I mean, he is the Terminator. He's just so solid. I think the rest of the season is going to be more exciting now because the focus is going to be, as you said, on those 2, 3, 4 teams. I mean, look, I'm in the McLaren shirt, as I said, so I'd love for McLaren to really smash it. And compared to where they were at the start of the season, I mean, this is leaps and bounds. I mean, they really have been working their socks off to make this happen.
The development race, we've mentioned it before, Aston Martin's development happened over the winter, and they hit the ground running and surprised themselves with McLaren back in 17th and 18th spot, the second worst team for the first 4 or 5 races. The development that they've given through the last 6 months, through the last 10 races, I think has been one of the best we've witnessed from any team playing catch-up for years. The development race this season, we've discussed it before, is unbelievable. and fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating, and it continues to be fascinating. You know, there's plenty of races left. Next up is Qatar. So that's
Yes.
a good one. I've been to Qatar twice.
I was going to ask you, Joe.
Yeah.
So we've only had one race there. So you've got 100% record at Qatar at the moment.
No, we've had two.
But
haven't we?
we're going to have to check that. We can check
I'm
it.
sure there's been.
I
Has
re-
it been? Oh no, I have done MotoGP as well. Maybe it's that.
Ah, right.
Maybe it's that. I
So,
don't know. I think.
So,
Okay.
so Joe,
We've had so many.
again, I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to do my homework on Qatar again because, you know, it's one of those tracks that I need to study. I need to probably sit back and watch the highlights from the previous race. What was it like?
It's
there,
one of
mate?
the youngest. Well, we'll save this for our Qatar preview, but
Good point.
so I won't say anything. But watch the next episode. It'll give me time to Google the head out of it. No, but it's an interesting one. It's one of the youngest tracks. No, it's a great vibe, and actually, Qatar was great, and I went for the World Cup as well. MotoGP I've been to. I do know they have changed the facilities and maybe the circuit as well. So we'll tell you a bit more about that on the Qatar preview, Racehouse.
Yes.
For now, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel here, and click the bell icon as well for notifications. We're on Spotify, Apple, and all the other major podcast platforms. We'll be back next time with the Qatar preview. And if you have any comments and if you'd like to contribute to the podcast, then please get in touch in the comments below. And we've got some links below as well in the description for the merch shop and all the podcast links as well. But and
Joe,
yes,
I just want to do a little shout out
Yes,
before
go
we
ahead.
finish. So to one of our listeners, so it's Mark, you know who you are, he's a guy I work with, big Formula One fan, and he's been listening to the podcast and absolutely loves it, and said he loves the fact that we couldn't be more Alan Partridge if we tried. So and the fact that Alan did live from the
Oast
Oast House. Yes, exactly. So you know, we had a good old laugh about that. So hi Mark, keep listening, mate, and spread the
hi
word.
Mark, and please can you share your Audible account with us so we can listen to from the Oast House? Have you listened to that? Have you heard it?
Yeah,
Is
I
it
love
good?
it, mate. Absolutely, with the dog.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
I
brilliant.
need to get into it. Yeah, I'm gonna check out.
Yeah, and in fact, this weekend with Ted's notebook, in fact, it was Ted's pod book that he was doing. He was making Alan Partridge references as well, because Martin Brundle, do you remember on the grid in Singapore, he was going, Esteban, shouting him out, and Piastri just walked off. Turns out that there's a whole thing running with Esteban from previous races, so they do the Dan, Alan Partridge thing, and so it's all just a joke, Alan, between all the Sky guys, you know. So,
I remember that when
yeah, mate,
he walked off because he was trying to say happy birthday, wasn't he?
That's it.
He just lost everyone. It's like, oh my god! I'm glad to see the pit walks
it was-
back.
yeah, it
Thank
was-
you, Martin, and thank you, Sky Sports, for bringing the pit walks back. That was very cool. Well, hi, Mark. Yeah, thanks, Mark, for watching and subscribing. And if you've got a shout out you want to tell us about, or if you have anything you want to plug, then let us know, and then we'll talk cash. But thanks also to our contributors today, Kat, Martin, and Graham at the Fan Zone. And if you want to be part of that, then grab us when we're out and about, and we will put your comments into the show. But for now, we'll sign off and see you next time on Racehouse. From me, Joe Lee.
And me, Darren.
Cheers.
Reeves.